The first sale, I don't remember which house it was specifically, but I do remember pretty much calling my mom every 5 minutes. Like, what's going on here? So I felt like I knew what I was doing, but you just don't have that confidence. And so having someone like that to lean on, it was great. And, there was a number of clients in the first couple of years that were like, your mom's involved in this, right? So.
Welcome to Dig's Influencer Podcast, the Titans of Real Estate. The show that provides direct access to the real estate industry's top movers and shakers as they share invaluable insight on how to best navigate and succeed in any market. I'm your host, Warren Dow, founder and CEO of M3 Media and publisher of Digs Magazine. In this episode, Dan O'Connor. Thank you to our show sponsor, Bow Concept. Today we welcome to the Digs Influencer Podcast, Dan O'Connor. Dan is owner of O'Connor Properties and agent at Strand Hill Christie's International Real Estate. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before we jump into talking real estate, you epitomize what it means to be a South Bay local. What was it like growing up in the South Bay?
It was amazing. I feel very fortunate to have grown up here. It was different back when I was growing up here. It felt less crowded. It felt less known of a place, less discovered, so to speak. It felt less affluent. It was a great family area, family neighborhood, and very much a beach town, which I still think comes through today, which is the draw, the schools and the family and the community and the beach. I always joke, like I played football in high school and we were the second tier sports team at our high school next to beach volleyball. Yeah. Like volleyball is so ingrained in this community, and then surfing and the beach life and being on football, we were like second class citizens. It was kind of funny.
So what's your favorite city in the South Bay, you think?
Well, it's changed. I mean, I grew up in Manhattan Beach. I grew up 3 blocks from the beach in Manhattan, and I love Manhattan. It's always going to have a special place in my heart. But I live in Hermosa now and have lived there 12, 13 years. And I just absolutely love Hermosa, the quaintness. It's literally less than half the size of Manhattan Beach geographically. And so there's some really cool benefits that come with that. The neighborhoods are, more tight-knit, and the schools are smaller, and it's a really cool place.
And a footnote for our audience, we are recording this podcast in Hermosa Beach, right?
Yeah.
So it's
and
funny.
My office is in Hermosa. And it's great.
Speaking of Hermosa, so when I graduated college, I moved here in 1990. And it was Hermosa Beach, where I first lived.
Oh, no way.
And then Manhattan, and then back to Hermosa, and now I live in Redondo.
Okay.
So
you're almost a South Bay local.
Almost. I think another couple years I'll qualify. It's
right. Yeah. We'll
hit the 25-year mark.
Your application's in for pending review.
Cool. Cool. So being local. So tell me about your journey. Also, before you got into real estate, we're going to talk a lot about real estate, but again, South Bay. What did you do for fun, and what pockets of the community, like surfing? What were you doing as a youth?
Yeah, as a youth, it was just a lot of activities. I joke around, because I have 2 kids now, and they don't just go out and disappear and and come back when it's dinner time anymore. Like, childhood's very different than when I grew up. But when I grew up on the Walk Street. We were 3 blocks from the beach, and so every summer, all day long, I'd be at the beach, and I was very into boogie boarding and then surfing, and did junior lifeguards and dabbled in volleyball and stuff. I was never a great volleyball player, but everything revolved around the beach and being near the beach and all that kind of stuff. And then got into the typical sports, soccer and basketball and baseball and football and stuff like that. But just absolutely love being close to the beach, and it was very ingrained in me. And then just being in the water, our family, we grew up with, ocean boat or a river boat. And so water sports is a big part of my life.
We forgot to mention the punk rock scene out of
Right.
Hermosa Beach, right?
Right,
Black
yeah.
Flag.
Black Flag,
Pennywise,
Pennywise
yeah.
is a little more my generation, but I mean, endless a number of summers on 4th of July, the big deal was where's Pennywise going to pop up and have like an impromptu show. And so you just would wait for the word to get out. And we didn't have social media back then. And we didn't have cell phones. So your buddies aren't texting you. You're just like, it's literally word of mouth. And you would, 4th of July is a scene here and always has been. It's one big party. And as a kid growing up here, middle school, high school, you were like dying to find out where Pennywise was going to play, like whose front patio, or it would be like an empty dirt lot. And they would play as long as they could until the cops got called, and then everybody would disperse. So yeah.
Too bad that can't happen today.
No,
right?
right?
At a
Nobody
bomber
would
Strand
ever
house.
let that happen. Yeah.
So after your high school, where did you ended up in San Diego, right?
Yeah, I went down to San Diego, the University of San Diego, which is a small Catholic school right off of SeaWorld Drive and just east of Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, and did 4 years down there and lived by the beach as soon as I could while I went to school, and then loved it, every minute of it, and then came back home after I was done.
And so I don't know if you like to say, or there's a saying about you that you were born into real estate.
Yeah. No,
So-
I definitely say that.
So
I mean, it's
tell us about that.
both parents, my mom and my stepdad, were in the real estate business. They've owned brokerages, they've managed brokerages, they've just been brokers, they've just been agents. My stepdad owned a property management company along with all the brokerage stuff, and my mom mainly focused on buyers and sellers. She did do management for a little bit as well as selling the whole time. Yeah, I mean, it was stuff that, I mean, she had one of the first cell phones in the car, like the built-in car phones that
Oh,
were
yeah.
like bolted into the console. Yeah, I got hit across the head once with that just because I was talking while she was on a business call, and it was fun. Yeah, I mean, it was all around growing up.
So when you started in the business, did you partner with your mom? Was it her brokerage at the time, or?
She was a broker associate at a local company, South Bay Brokers, which recently in the last few years got acquired by Sotheby's. At that point, she was just focusing on buyers and sellers. And when I finished college, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I definitely had the real estate bug. And she's like, look, if you don't really know what you want to do yet, why don't you come up here and you can work for me? And so I started out literally as her assistant, $8.25 an hour. And along with just doing, all the like assistant type stuff, which I was happy to do because I was learning, I also just shadowed her on every appointment and like would drive around buyers. I'd drive, she'd sit shotgun and talk to the buyers. She actually really liked that feature. And I'd go on every listing appointment. And so I was just soaking it up.
You
like a
sponged up
sponge.
all that.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable experience. It literally, I've told people a number of times, like, I wouldn't be in this business if it weren't for that type of opportunity. Because just to start fresh on your own with no mentor like that, I mean, it's really brutal.
So family businesses, though, can be really challenging, right? How did you
Yeah.
overcome that?
What's really funny is my mom and I didn't have the best relationship growing up. She's a very like big personality and a very assertive person, and but those are all the strengths that make her a great business person. And when we started working together, we just really understood our roles, and they morphed over time. But she was very open from the beginning to things that I could add to the business. Technology was just starting to really infiltrate the business. So computers, and not just computers, but like the software specifically for real estate, cell phones, and how we use them. And then obviously cameras and, photography and all that was really coming of age. And so we actually worked really, really well together. And one thing I will say for anybody that's listening that like is going to work with a family member, we sat down at the end of every year and, essentially renegotiated our deal. And it progressed over time to partners, to 50-50 partners. And then she slowly faded out of the business. And it was a great thing where we would sit down every year, talk about what the next year was going to look like and what our agreement was going to be and how we felt like we did the year before. And it was a great thing to do that helped us kind of have a good understanding of each other.
That's great advice. I mean, to be in alignment and just sort of recalibrate
Right.
every year. And
Yeah.
hey, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about your first sale. How, like your first sale, you're in escrow. Tell me about that first sale.
The first sale, I had the worst memory, so I don't remember which house it was specifically, but I do remember pretty much calling my mom every 5 minutes, like, what's going on here? Like, am I doing the right thing? Yeah. So I felt like I knew what I was doing, but you just don't have that confidence. And so having someone like that to lean on, it was great. And, there was a number of clients in the first couple of years that were like, your mom's involved in this, right? So it was a benefit for both of us. Yeah.
That's great. So what about your biggest sale?
Biggest sale to date would be 3001 The Strand in Hermosa. Oh, sorry. No, that got eclipsed a year ago by 1540 The Strand in Hermosa. That was over $14 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so that was a new construction, 3 stories plus a basement on the corner of 16th and The Strand in Hermosa. And that client, by the way, called off a postcard 4 years before, and we just stayed in touch. We ended up doing a couple other deals before this one. But she lived on the corner of 8th and The Strand and wanted to upgrade. So I sold her 8th and The Strand for over $8 million and then parlayed it into the 16th and The Strand. So it was over $20 million.
So from $8 an hour to $22 million, in sales and on 2 deals.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it that way, but yeah, not bad.
Not bad,
Yeah.
right? That's why this industry is so fascinating, and that's why there's 1.5 million licensed agents in the U.S. trying to make it happen.
Yeah, and I feel like 1 million of them are in the South Bay.
Yeah, I think Manhattan Beach has literally more agents per square foot than any. The bell. Did you hear that, Karen?
Time's up.
The time's up. Sorry, I dropped my water lid. Manhattan Beach has more agents per square foot than any community anywhere, probably.
I believe it. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's a highly competitive industry, and then obviously in this area, it's even more competitive.
So Dan, I'm gonna throw you a little curve. I'm big on marketing and branding, and I do a lot of reading and studying, and this is sort of my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And marketing and branding is all about telling a story and creating a story. So let's have some fun. If I owned a property on the Strand, okay, and we were going to come out at 18 million, okay, and I was interviewing you to sell my home, and I just simply asked you like, hey Dan, what's your story?
Yeah.
How would you answer that?
I really pride myself on being in tune with the market and being in connection with the players in the market. And I think that is essential in this business just in general, and then especially in the super high end. You have to have relationships with other agents, and you have to be able to get the feedback from those agents, and you have to be able to show these houses. Crazily enough, half the houses in the super high end are teardowns, so you don't really have to know a lot about the house itself. But the other half that are beautiful new construction home, you have to know what lighting system, what sound system, what all the materials are, and there's a gazillion materials nowadays. And to be an expert and be able to answer questions to any buyer that comes along is absolutely essential. So you sound like you know what you're doing. The whole thing in this whole entire business is making people believe you know what you're talking about. That's why I believe people would choose to work with me. That's why I hold open houses, because I can sit there and be myself. And if I can have an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody, they can at least know I know what I'm talking about. And if we, that's kind of my quote unquote hook. Like I take a lot of pride in having a lot of knowledge in this business, and I want to share that knowledge, and I want, my clients to benefit from that. So I try to express that with any client, but especially in the high end, you have to feel like you know what you're talking about with the specific property, and then obviously with the market in general and with other comparables to this property, knowing how you stack up against other properties, because the buyers know. Forget the buyer's agents. The buyers know what they're looking at. And in the super high end, you got to make them want to pull that trigger, because half the time they're just like, oh, I don't, they just can be not super motivated because there's usually no huge rush, right?
Well said. That's awesome. So you mentioned new construction, and I know you have a passion for new construction and development. And obviously the South Bay has seen a ton of development.
Yeah.
How do you see the development market today?
So the speculative development market has really slowed down as far as the number of houses coming to market in general. Like when the first half of my career, it felt like 90% of the new homes being built were speculative and just a handful of builders. And there's still a lot of spec builders in town, but what's changed is the value of the land has gone up so much. The profits, for these guys and their pro formas aren't quite there. They're much pickier now, and they can't quite get to where they need to be to make business sense. And buyers have become, less fearful of the building process. So there's so many more custom homes being built that, you don't have the same market, that you used to. It's very interesting how the market's shifted.
So, and we'll talk more about the market in a little bit, but what's your favorite style of architecture? The South Bay is so eclectic.
Yeah.
I mean, beach cottage to modern to...
Yeah.
What's your favorite style?
I mean, the one that kind of tugs on my heartstrings is like a quintessential beach cottage. The kind of like enclosed, window porch, and the like super angled roof lines, and the shingle style or like long plank wood style, 2-story kind of like, just like I said, quintessential beach cottage. I also really, really enjoy like a really nice soft modern. I just can appreciate the craftsmanship that comes into something where there's seamless parts to a house, or just joints and stuff that aren't covered up by trim and all this kind of stuff you can get away with in a Craftsman or whatever. The craftsmanship that goes into a really nice modern home is something I appreciate.
So speaking of architecture, like, it's kind of interesting. I noticed, the South Bay is so laid back, right?
Yeah.
We're beach, right? So we're laid
Very
back.
much.
And the architecture seems like it's laid back in its own way, and it seems like there's themes that come and go, but they sort of go in a group. Like
right.
They're building modern, and modern's happening. There's a lot of modern going on.
Totally.
And then plantation is the rage, and then we do the plantations.
Right. And now it's kind of played out. People are getting sick of it, which you wouldn't have thought you would hear a couple years ago, but yeah.
It's just interesting because like on the Westside, people take a lot more maybe risks and chances. I don't know. The architecture is all over the place, but there's like full-blown glass houses and, interesting, crazy stuff going on.
I think because it's just such a smaller market geographically, and even inside, Manhattan Beach, there's so many different little niches that we just can't be as brave unless it's like custom, because, a lot of these, again, spec, it's a business and they need to sell. They don't want to sit on these houses. And when you're spending millions and millions of dollars on the land plus the construction, that interest clock, runs and runs. And if you do something really brave, it's not for everybody, And so I think they're just not as risk adverse, and there's just not as quite of an appetite down here because the area is so much smaller.
That makes sense. So another curveball for you.
Okay.
Tell us about any sort of funny, can't believe it happened, TMZ type real estate moments.
Geez, you put me on the spot. Yeah.
That was my plan.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I've had a couple celebrities come through houses that has always surprised me. Like when many years ago, I had that 3001 The Strand, and I opened the door and Michael Strahan comes through the door, and that was pretty cool. He's an absolute monster of a human being. Super nice. But, it's such a crazy business that weird stuff happens all the time. A funny story, and not necessarily like TMZ based, but literally I was growing a beard at the beginning of the year, and it was my like playoff beard. I was growing it until I closed my first deal, and I closed my first deal like a week ago, and I came home from being with the kids skiing, and on Sunday I shaved the beard off, and 4 hours later I had an escrow cancel. So I'm like, I need to start
shave the
growing
beard.
this beard right back.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
It's such a crazy business. Like and it is great and it is horrible all at the same time. So it's unlike any other business I'm familiar with.
Yeah, it's totally unique. I agree. So let's dive into the market a little bit. Some insights and intel. So I want to go back to this idea of local, since you again epitomize what it is to be a local. What does the old adage like real estate is local mean to you? You know, when they say real estate's local, what does that really mean to you who is a bona fide local?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, there's sentimental value to different areas, different streets, and for everybody it's different. You know, you can go buy a new house in the Tree section or East Manhattan and be very happy. But for me, it's like, what does this street mean to you? What does this neighborhood mean to you? Or what does this lifestyle create for you? That's kind of what you really want to dive into when you're looking for that special home around here. And every street's different. It's a very eclectic area. I mean, every street's different. Every little niche is different. They all have pluses and minuses. We have neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks. We have neighborhoods that do have sidewalks. We have walk street houses. We have walk street houses that are on, hills, and we have flat walk streets, and every niche comes with something different. And honestly, what you tend to get around here too, less than you used to like a generation ago, is people move to different niches as they go along in life. You move to East Manhattan for the big yard, and then you move west of Sepulveda to be closer to town, and then you move to the sand section to enjoy the view and really be close to town and enjoy the beach. And obviously, in our area, that's the most expensive, essentially.
And then you move to PV to get away from
exactly, or you move to Palm Springs to
yeah.
Go.
It is funny how you can sort of trace the migration,
right? Yeah,
of yeah.
But when my parents, we literally just lived on the walk street because that's where my mom wanted to be, and I grew up on the walk street.
Looking for a personal stylist for your home? Check out Beau Concept. One of their design consultants can help you make the most out of your space. No request is too big or small for living, dining, sleeping, home office, and outdoor spaces. And check out their Southern California showrooms in Orange County and Costa Mesa, and also in Los Angeles and La Brea. For more information, visit Beau Concept at beauconcept.com. Email info@beauconcept.la. So let's talk about pricing. I mean, no secret, pricing has gone completely, totally Richter, astronomical. I mean, Manhattan Beach alone, if you look at like the hill in the tree section and sand section, easily up over 50% since 2013.
Right.
So what do you think pricing, like what are the implications to this continuous break new records, new development? Like what in terms of just, what do you think future affordability, and like, is there a middle class anymore in the South Bay? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. I mean, I think you touched on it right there at the end. Like it's hard to get into Manhattan Beach under $2 million. Like, and that's insane. Like, that's crazy. Even East Manhattan, like a teardown is going to cost you $1.5 million, within 10% plus or minus. And it's a teardown, and you're spending $1.5 million. So it's absolutely crazy what the prices have done. I think one of the things that has kept the market going is the interest rates are so low. Like still
money has been so cheap.
It is ridiculous. If you borrow, less than 30-year fixed, like you're like 3%, under 3%, or just over. I mean, that's insane. And 30-year fixed are like high threes, maybe 4. I sound like my mom when I say this, but my first house, like the interest rate was 8%. My mom tells stories about her first house. The interest rate was 16%. There's obviously different price categories, but if you just take the interest rate for what it is, I mean, that is historically low and they keep talking about rates going up. And I truly, truly believe they're going to. They just haven't. Again, the theme of the first half of this podcast has been local and like me growing up here. But as you know, like I'm a rare breed. And So we are getting, people moving from out of the area, and it's such a larger demographic that live out of the area, and they're, wealthy people, and they come into town because they want to live here. And there's a lot of great features about living here. And so the demand hasn't gone down, and that hasn't, demand keeps coming, mostly from like the Westside and stuff like that, or out of state. But that's what's kept the prices going the way they have.
Yeah. I don't see that ever sort of course it's going to be cyclical, right? But
For
it's
sure.
But there's only one Strand.
Right.
There's only, so it's like
they're not making more land.
And the big money, they get what they want. And if they want a Strand home, there's no show me the comps.
Right.
It's how much will it take for me to get this home?
Right.
Even if it's for sale or not, right? There's been stories where, a door knock, here's an offer for your home.
Yeah. And, what's crazy to me, two things I'll say. One is the last year or two, things have been price sensitive. I'm not saying prices have gone down, but buyers have been more sensitive. They're not going to just throw good money after bad over something. But if it's priced right, there are buyers out there to gobble these things up. That's something that, you can't just ask whatever you want anymore, where there was a time.
I want to say I want to say 3 years ago, and I might be wrong, but I had an agent who will remain nameless, right?
Okay.
Tell me about, they closed a deal on the Strand. I'm not sure who they represented, but they were half the transaction, right?
Right.
And I think it was a seller. Yeah, they represented a seller. And I guess there was a buyer who was looming that missed out on the transaction for whatever reason.
Right.
So literally, before it had closed escrow, he contacted this agent and said, as soon as escrow closes, I will pay the owner $1 million to sell it back to me.
Wow.
Over cash.
Wow. Did they do that?
They didn't do it.
Okay.
Because it's like, again, no, it's not. It's like,
What's interesting too, on a like kind of a caveat, but a similar idea, some of the most motivated buyers are the next door neighbor. Like that's one thing we're seeing more of these days, and it's not a huge scale, but we're seeing more and more people buying the lot next door, because in some of these neighborhoods, like the tree section or the sand section, these lots aren't very big. 4,000 square feet in the tree section, 4,000 to 5,000 square feet for your average lot. The sand section's 2,700 square feet for a quote unquote full lot. And so the Strand is 3,300 square feet. These are not big properties. And so you're seeing like the neighbors come by and grab the small house next door so they can put a pool in, or, just have control over,
build a yard.
Exactly. Yeah. Put a guest house. Like it's been an interesting phenomenon in the area that's happening more than you would think. Yeah.
So speaking of the appreciation and stuff, what's the biggest, when it was heyday, when it was frothy, what's the biggest, price offer over list that you saw?
Yeah, I don't know that I have an insanely exciting answer, but it would be somewhere along the lines of, I've seen things in, the high ones, the $2 million range go for, 10% over what they're asking. So you're talking about a couple $100,000 from the list price. I haven't personally been involved, but you've seen some of the super high end go, $1 million over, but that is, in comparison is also around 10% of what they're asking. So that's probably, a typical like crazy story. Like, oh my God, it went, the X over. It's usually around 10%. It seems to really catch people's eye. Obviously hearing those stories less and less, with the buyers being a little more conservative for sure. Just because a lot of the like highly motivated buyers already bought. So it's kind of the more people that are, I would say, less motivated. There's not this huge need or desire. And again, we're talking about wealthy people in general compared to the rest of the country, right? And so they have this approach that I'm going to be more conservative or more, astute with the purchase I'm making. And so I would say like that combination of slightly less motivated for no like crazy desire, and, people wanting to feel like they're making a smart decision because there's uncertainty. We've had such a run up. Like you said, 50% from 2013. That's 10% a year, basically. I mean, that's insane. And then
On a big number to begin with.
and then all of what's going on in the world,
Yeah.
the political climate and just the feeling that we're due for a correction. I mean, the last downturn was 2007, 2008. 10 years ago, usually the cycles in real estate are shorter than that. So everybody's just trying to time the market, and they just they want to feel smart, like, oh, I timed it right, instead of being the last one in, before it goes down.
Yeah.
But I say this to everybody, like, if you hold on for the long term, history proves that you're going to be totally fine. You're going to do very well. And these rates, I am hitting this home. These rates, even if you overpaid and 2 years from now, the market dips 10%, but it'll come back and you've locked in this 3.75 interest rate for 30 years, you're going to look like a genius. I mean, just when all your buddies are buying houses 5 years from now at 6%, And that's what people forget. Like, oh, I want to wait till the market turns down. Well, rates are going to go up. Is it really going to be that much more affordable? There's an equation there where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, the price went down 10%, but my interest rate doubled. You know what I mean? Like, some of these traditional buyers are borrowing 70, 80%, so that the double in interest rate has a more significant effect. You know what I mean? So it's all, you got to take it all into consideration.
And speaking of real estate as it's sort of an investment. I mean, what's wrong, even in normalized times, with a 3% return on $1 million asset per year? Like,
I mean, I don't know. I have a savings account. I don't even get a full percent.
Right. Yeah, so it's crazy. Yeah. So let's talk about the real estate industry and market for a moment. I mean, the industry's been crazily disrupted and continues to be. Zillow's CEO just stepped down. I don't know if you heard that last week. There's lots of turmoil there. Compass continues to raise, ungodly amounts of money and gobbling up, boutique brokerages and growing. Mergers and acquisitions continue. Just look at the South Bay, right? We talked about South Bay brokers.
Yep.
Shorewood, where you worked for a long period of time, is gone. When you look at the South Bay the last 5 to 7 years, where do you see this going in terms of, we've been sort of not immune?
Insulated.
We've been insulated, right? But now that insulation is beginning to crack a little bit. Totally. I just saw on the way into work yesterday a Rex listing sign on a huge house.
I don't even know what that is.
Rex is a discount broker out of the Westside or somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we've had discount brokerages before, in my history in the business. The one that really interests me and I want to keep an eye on and have been keeping an eye on is Compass. They've got $1 billion behind them, some crazy amount of money, venture capital behind them, and they are pushing their investments behind the actual agent. And that is a big difference between what the fear has been for somebody in my industry, which is having Amazon come in or Google come in or whatever, where they're trying to automate our business and remove the agent from the process. Right. Here you have somebody with hundreds of millions of dollars coming in and basically throwing it behind the agent. You would like to think there's a lot of smart people that think that's a way to go as well. And so I do truly believe we provide an inherent value, or at least agents like myself. I'd like to include myself in somebody that takes a lot of pride in being an expert in their industry. And I've seen what I've advised my clients to do, make my clients a lot of money, make their lives happier, make their families happier. And you can't do that with an automated system. And a lot of these people are busy, and you have to dedicate a lot of time if you want to remove the agent from the process. That's my belief. So Compass really interests me as far as and they are making waves. They're coming into town. They've already infiltrated the Westside, and they're going across the country too. And they've got a lot of technology behind them and a lot of money behind them. I'll be curious to see how that works. But the other half of your question is, when I started 15 years ago, the South Bay was this little, not, quote unquote bubble in so many different ways, but with real estate industry. And 2 independent brokerages like just dominated this area, and they dominated for 30 plus years. And the big corporate companies, Coldwell Banker, Christie's, Sotheby's, even Remax, who's been around, like never really dominated the area. They couldn't take over the area. And now that those 2 smaller independent companies have kind of dissipated, one merged and the other one sold, but then it just completely disappeared in Shorewood. That's been the biggest difference, is now these big corporate companies have come in, and we have Strand Hill Christie's, which I'm a part of, that really, does amazing in the Hermosa Manhattan Beach area.
One of the biggest players, and they were only how many years old? I mean, like
they're only, I think, 4 years old.
4 years old,
I've been with them a full year now. And by the way, we have a fraction of the amount of agents that like Sotheby's does. And Sotheby's has like almost 300 agents, and we have like less than 100. So the fact that I don't have the stats, so I don't want to misquote, but if we're either number 1 in Manhattan Beach or like right up there with number 1 or number 2, and as far as transactions and volume, it's a pretty amazing thing.
That's awesome. So back to Zillow for a minute, because this is what's interesting. I find like their market valuation, market cap is like, it hovers, depending on their stock price, between $6 and $8 billion, which is crazy. Yeah. They've never made money.
Right.
And
that's
now
like
they're
Twitter though too, right?
Yeah. It's one of those, build it and we'll eventually get profitable. Yeah. But with the CEO leaving, they're doubling, tripling down on their whole iBuyer thing, where they're buying homes and flipping them and all that. What do you think is going to become of someone like Zillow, who was like a real estate disruptor 1.0? I mean, they're 10 years old, whatever, but like even they're old hat in a sense.
Right.
Now there's Open Door, and do you think they're going to be a brokerage one day? Do you think they'll flip the switch?
I mean, I could definitely see that happening. With all that kind of money, those types of companies look for other avenues to make revenue. And if they think they can make revenue by buying and flipping or becoming a brokerage, I think it's a testament, though, if that does happen, to the value of an agent. Like if they turn into a broker, they're going to have, even like Redfin, I mean, they have agents. They just have a different business model than like a traditional brokerage. But I don't know what's going to happen with Zillow. And I just always feel like this area is either going to be like the last affected or not affected, because it is such a unique area. And, where they're buying is like, from my knowledge, is like Nevada and Arizona, where it's easy to acquire things like that. And the transactions are simpler.
Tract homes, very homogenized.
Yeah. And so, it's not the same thing as here. So I don't see that as an imminent threat at this time.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's just to watch that, keep an eye on that development.
For
Amazon
sure.
too.
No, I know.
I mean, Amazon's. Anyway, so in closing, let's get back to maybe some fun stuff, non-real estate. So I hear you're on this 2019 workout challenge. Well, tell us about that.
Okay. I was inspired by my real estate coach. I'm a real estate coach, was part of the Tom Ferry real estate coaching network. And he did this thing last year where he did 250 cardio workouts in a year. And it comes out to like roughly 2 of every 3 days you're working out. And so I just started this year off thinking I want to do something different. Physical fitness has been something that I really want to focus on. It makes me feel better and healthier, and allows me to eat what I want to eat. Because I have a little self-control problem when it comes to food. So yeah, I'm doing 250 workouts in a year. And I'm posting it on my Instagram stories to kind of keep myself accountable.
Nice.
So, but it's been quite a conversation starter for people. And I get a lot of messages, and people bring it up when they see me. It's kind of been cool.
That's awesome. So, do you have a favorite vacation spot?
Yeah. It's become less of a vacation because basically my whole family's moved there. But Maui has always been a great place for, somewhere I love to go, and I have 2 kids and they love it over there. But my sister and brother-in-law live there with their 2 kids, and my mom has basically moved there with my stepdad. So I don't really stay at their house. We tend to get a hotel or whatever.
Where do you like to stay in Maui?
Well, the kids love the Grand Wailea because it's got the most insane like water park pool kind of thing. But yeah, we stay in the Wailea area because that's where the family lives. So
awesome. Are you working on a real estate project in Kona, Hawaii, or something?
I'm not working on anything.
Nothing there?
No.
We got a fact. We got a rumor that no.
Oh.
Never mind.
No. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, if you don't mind me jumping in, the
please.
biggest difference for me in the last 18 months is I took over my stepdad's property management company, and that has been quite an experience, a learning process, but it is a great overlap to my brokerage business. A lot of my clients are at a point in their lives and in their investment strategy that they want to include income property. A lot of clients nowadays, because of the wealth in the area, they don't sell their old house. They keep it because they think it's a great asset to hold on to. So I can now provide these management services for these clients. And then my stepdad had a great book of business that I've taken over. So we manage about 105 units in the South Bay area. And it's become a great overlap for my brokerage business.
Yeah.
So that's my project, so to speak. Yeah.
Good deal. So Dan, it was great to chat with you today. Thank you so much for your time. And we definitely enjoyed hearing your personal story and insight into the market. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is my first official real estate podcast, so this was cool.
Awesome.
I like it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So thanks for tuning in to the Digs Influencer Podcast. We'll look forward to hooking up next time. And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you found some value. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review. Find us on iTunes and your favorite podcast provider. Until next time.